Good evening. It is Monday, October 3rd, 2022. A cooling fall day here as we jump into October on our first Monday. And I've got Peter Bunai with First Choice Home Inspections joining again this evening for our discussion that we call Love Your Home. And we have this home inspector, Peter Bunai, who is full of knowledge and information that and our goal is to bring you that knowledge and information about real estate. And Peter can bring you information about home inspection specifically to help you when you're making decisions about buying a home so that you can make informed, educated decisions and avoid costly mistakes during the process. So Peter, welcome to our call this evening.
Well, thank you. Good to be here.
Awesome. Well, it's great to have you again. And I love that you can join us. Join me here, and you've got a lot of great information tonight to share. We wanted to talk a little bit. You had mentioned you've got some really valuable information to share about a particular type of inspection and a particular type of systems that are involved. And I'm going to let you just take it away and introduce your subject.
All right. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about radon testing. And radon testing gets a little bit of a bad rap in this area. It's for sure that in the Midwest and further up north, there are parts of the country, let's just say, that have a much worse problem with radon than we do. And so I think that, people have sort of in the past gotten the idea that radon is not a problem here. But I've been doing radon testing in this area for 5 years, and it's absolutely present. And I find radon at high levels in about 1 in 7 homes. So it's something that people, if they want to know about it, they should be able to know about it. The way that I approach it, though, is that to me, the radon testing should never be a problem. I don't really see myself as a radon evangelist. To me, it's more like about serving the customer. If I have a customer and they would like to know about radon, I'm absolutely willing to do a radon test.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, a lot of times by the time I get to the home inspection and we're talking about it, usually there's already an agreement in place as to whether or not radon testing is going to go on. And so I usually will ask them to ask their realtor if that has been agreed to or not agreed to, just to make sure we don't do anything we're not supposed to. Just to honor that. So for right now, I think it'd be great just to go over some really basic points about radon.
Yeah.
And I've got a couple of slides if you don't mind if I take a few minutes and put those up.
I would love for you to share your slides. I will add real quick that here in the greater Williamsburg area and in the Peninsula, I have had buyers that request and we do radon inspections. It is not something that our local associations require based on the contract structure that we have. However, if you go a little bit further west in the state, in fact, going into Richmond, it is a pretty standard practice as you get further west to certainly do these radon inspections. And so I'm definitely eager to have you share more information about that because it is present everywhere. And that is, well, I don't want to say everywhere, but it's certainly something to be aware of for sure. And I love that you're bringing this educational piece to us.
All right.
So feel free to share.
I'm going to make this absolutely as simple as possible, and I'm going to include as little science as possible. Just this first slide, and I apologize for it because it's got a bunch of science on it. So we'll get past this first slide, and then we'll be able to talk a lot of more practical stuff. So let's see. And here we have this decay chain of uranium-238. And this is a whole lot of information that people really don't need to know. So why I'm putting it up here is just for two really small parts. One is you know, if you really want to dive deep into radon and where it comes from, it's great to look at this and understand all kinds of stuff about it. The absolute basics of it, though, would be something like it comes from uranium, and which is just something naturally occurring in the earth. And then many things that are radioactive isotopes normally have what they call a half-life. So they have normal decay. And so this is the chain of decay that all these things are going through. And one of the things that it becomes is radon, and it only becomes radon for 3.8 days, as that's its half-life. So really, of this whole slide, the only thing I would want anyone to remember from this is that radon is naturally occurring, and that while it is this whole chain of things that's going on for a very short period of time, radon becomes present. Okay. The other part of that matters is that because radon has a fairly short half-life, when it does decay, it gives off an alpha particle, and that alpha particle is what is dangerous. Because radon is a colorless, odorless gas, if we happen to be in an area where we're breathing it and it happens to decay while the particle is in our lungs, it can actually do damage to the lung tissue. And so that's the mechanism by which radon can do damage. So again, probably that was too much science. I promise no more science in this. That was it. So let's see if we can move on with another slide. All right. This one is going to be much simpler. We just want to get an idea about how radon gets into our house. Okay. One of the ways that it gets in is that, of course, warm air rises, or if you have a chimney, warm air is coming out, or if you have a vent fan you turn on. There are a lot of things that cause the air pressure inside the house to be lower than the air pressure outside of the house. Okay. Especially just running your heating and cooling system. Obviously, when they're running normally, and they're often in the basement area, they go into all the different bedrooms and they basically pressurize those rooms as a means of moving the air. Yeah. And when they do that, some of that air is going to escape through the windows. So the net effect of that is that there is a lower pressure inside of the house. Yeah. So, and we just talked about that the radon is, I guess we didn't mention it comes from the ground, but it's coming from the ground and it's a gas that's rising. So what happens is we have a lower pressure inside of many modern homes, and there's cracks in the slab, and the radon is actually drawn into the house by that mechanism because there's a lower pressure inside of the house. Okay. So that's how radon gets into our homes. Okay. All right. Yep. So this is a basic. This is just doing a radon test. This is a basic test device. The only thing, so when we're setting up these test devices, we have a lot of ways that we try and put them in the ideal location. Some of those things would be in the lowest livable level of the house. We don't want to put them near windows. We don't want to put them near vents. So we want to put them somewhere where we're trying to get the best reading of what the radon is likely to be, or almost the highest reading. Although we also don't want it right on the ground. We want them off the ground because we want a reading of what a person, let's say a small person, the level they might be breathing at, that sort of thing. So that's how we set up a radon test. Let's see.
Is this your device, Peter? This is the device that you have?
Yes, it is. And I'll say some more about that in a little bit. Okay. All right. And here's a typical result of a radon test. Here's a 2-day radon test. Okay. And so this is the device that I just showed you. It takes a measurement, or it's constantly reading every time there's an event inside of the ion chamber. We won't go into that, but let's just say that it records all the times that it senses radon in the environment, and it counts them, and it of course records every hour, and it makes this nice handy chart for us, which is easy to see. And this level here, 4, represents what we normally see as the value of what we want it below for a real estate transaction. So that's why the number 4 is highlighted in red.
Okay.
Is we like to see the overall average less than 4. Also, 2-day radon test is important because the minimum amount of time that we're allowed to test is 48 hours.
Okay.
So that's going to be important. Now, what a lot of people don't always understand is how much radon varies. And because people, the only thing they ever see is these little snapshots of, what radon does in their particular home on the particular group of days that they've had tested. So let's take a look at this, what I've got here next. This is a 40-day radon test. And this is just one that I did myself just to demonstrate how much radon varies over time. So what's interesting about this is you can imagine that if we had done a 2-day radon test during this period of time, we were likely to get somewhere, if we were to do the radon somewhere during this period of time, we would be likely to get something around, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3.
Yeah.
But if we were to do it during this period of time, this 2-day period, we'd be around 14.
That's a completely different result. That's
right. So you're right. So this is one continuous 40-day radon test demonstrating how things vary over time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just good to understand how much radon really does vary, and that when we're doing a real estate transaction, we're really just trying to get a snapshot of what's going on in that home for a short period of time. And of course, in a lot of the EPA literature, it recommends, longer periods of time and all that. And people read right past that and they go, well, what's the minimum period I can test for? And it's 48 hours. So they do the 48-hour test. So couple other things that I just would like to talk about briefly. If you want to do radon testing in Virginia, you need to belong to one of 2 national organizations which monitor radon testing. I belong to the NRPP, and I belong to them since 2018. They make sure that I'm trained properly. They make sure that my equipment is been calibrated every year. They make sure I know how to read it. So there's a lot of things that I have to do to maintain my certification with the NRPP. And so that's really the mechanism by which people who are doing the radon testing keep up their standards and keep up the qualifications for making sure they know they're doing it properly and understand how to operate the equipment. And as I said in the beginning, radon never needs to be a problem. I've got this one last flow chart. Is radon a problem? The first of all, is the client concerned about it? If your client's not concerned about it, no problem.
Right.
If the client is concerned about it, there we go. Test for radon. Most of the time when we test for radon, it's below 4, no problem.
Okay.
If radon is above 4, we're going to mitigate. Mitigation is when we have somebody else come in and they do usually a core drill in the slab, and they start removing some of the air from underneath the slab and put in a fan. And that almost always does a great job of reducing the radon well below 4. And so after that, after we mitigate, we're back to no problem.
Okay.
So anything I missed, or John, or any questions for me?
Yeah, I got 100 questions probably for you,
Okay.
Peter, and I'd love to get into this a little bit more, because it's really cool to see this graphic and to see that 40-day range. That was a bit of an eye opener for sure. I don't know if I've ever seen the printout results of that period of time like that before. So that is a huge indicator. So I'm sure that has something to do with the way we live in a house too, from season to season. Perhaps in a 40-day period of time, there may be occasions when the house is completely closed up. We don't have any windows open. We're not ventilating the space at all. We're just staying inside. Maybe we're running the air conditioner in the summertime and none of the windows are open or anything. But now I'm sleeping with my windows open, which is awesome.
Right.
And the house is ventilated and there's a lot more air moving around and through the house. So that would, is that true? Is that what might help contribute to a variation in that type of reading?
It does. And there's really, it's amazing. Everything seems to change the amount of radon. You can really, on most radon tests, I can see the day and night cycles. In fact, that's one of the things that I look for when I'm picking up a radon test is I want to know that it hasn't been tampered with. So there's certain things that I expect to see.
Okay.
How radon is going up and down throughout the experiment of the test, and to make sure that someone hasn't, done something to try and prevent me from, doing a proper test on the house.
Right. And so that radon testing device is sitting in its own specific location, and it's without getting too scientific about it, it's essentially taking a sampling of the air, right?
Yeah.
So it's actually taking in and then determining based on its sampling mechanism, which I'm sure it's got a lot of sophisticated stuff in there,
Yeah.
to, determine if radon is in that air, that sniff. So it's taking a sniff, I suppose you could say, of that air at that given moment when it's taking that sampling. What kinds of things? So you mentioned the venting. So if there's going to be if there's a radon test result and we need to get into mitigation, there's a process that goes into that. I guess before I get into that, I have a question. Or no, let's go ahead and get it since I went down that road. So what types of things, what types of mitigation would be involved if there is a radon, if there is a mitigation that needs to happen? What would somebody do?
Well, they so I only do the radon testing, and there's other companies that do radon mitigation, and they're also certified under the same sort of criteria just to do the radon mitigation. And as I said, the typical way, usually the easiest way, is what we're going to do is we're going to basically remove air from underneath the house. And so when we lower that air pressure underneath the house, basically the radon gas that's coming up towards the base of the house or under the slab is going to get drawn into this fan, and then it just gets exhausted above the house.
It goes out.
And that is amazing what a great job that does for removing radon. What it wouldn't surprise me is, I see people and they'll have let's say they have right around 4. I'll often talk with them that maybe it's even worth it just to get the mitigation done anyway. And then you end up, sometimes I've seen levels as low as 0.3, 0.6 after the mitigation. So why not just get that system installed, and then you've got incredibly low radon for the next 20 years. These systems last a very long time.
Yeah, it sounds like a very simple system to ventilate. So here's this scary word of radon and radiation and the things and the illnesses that might come out from that kind of thing. And I think it's great that we mentioned now too that the mitigation process is it's not a shall I say, it's not a dire diagnosis of the home. It is certainly remediable, and you'd be able to address that. What types of homes might be more likely to have a higher level of radon? We have a lot of homes in this area that are mostly crawl space. We do have homes that are on slab, and occasionally, however rarely, we'll have homes with a basement. So if those types of homes are there, what's the type of home that's most likely to face a radon situation?
Most of the time, though, or at least the most likely, is going to be the basement, and that's because the concrete goes way into the earth and it really kind of seals off the home. The next most likely is going to be the slab on grade, and they do absolutely happen with slab on grade.
Right. Now,
if you have a crawl space and the crawl space is ventilated, there is a very, very low chance that you're going to have a problem with radon. That being said, I have had a couple of homes with crawl spaces that either were sealed for one reason or another, or they just happened to have the HVAC system in there, and it was towards the middle, and it was a larger house, and it was still enough that because they placed the HVAC system right in the crawl space, basically, as soon as the radon came up, it went right into the HVAC and went right into the home. And so that was ended up being the mechanism which allowed the radon into the house.
Yep.
So for the most part, it is definitely the basements and slabs, but it can happen with the crawl spaces as well. I think the bottom line for this is that testing is simple and it's really quite inexpensive. So there's almost no reason not to find out.
Yeah,
Just to have it tested and find out what it is, and then make your decision from that.
And that applies to so many different things. The home inspection process is such a learning part of when you're doing a home inspection altogether, you're learning as much as you can about that home. And during that diligence part of the process, which was just, that's what it is. This is part of the buyer's due diligence, is to learn as much as they can about the home that they're buying, that they're going to live in. I agree. Anything that you can do during that period of time that's relatively simple enough to do, I encourage anybody to do that. So this is a great information, Peter. I really appreciate your bringing this information about radon testing to us today. So this is a great subject. In fact, it leads me to some other questions about some other topics. But we'll get into those things later, because one of the things that you mentioned was about or you didn't specifically say encapsulation, but when we get into vented crawl spaces versus sealed crawl spaces, and then encapsulation and all these other kinds of things that people are doing, because we got other issues in the environment as well, which include humidity and moisture and mold and all those kind of things that we try to mitigate, and then you factor that in. So living in a home has all these systems that are part of that home and how we live in it. So with that in mind, this has been a great call. This has been a great bit of information, and we're gonna make sure that this is out there so that people can reference and learn more. And I'm gonna make sure that you have Peter Bunai's contact information. Peter, your contact information will be part of the link in the video, and it'll be on Facebook as well. So if anybody has any questions about home inspections, and if you're a real estate agent, you're looking for a home inspector, I can tell you Peter Bunai is a great home inspector and provides a great report for your clients. If you are looking to buy a home, I highly encourage you to work with a real estate professional that has connections with people that you like, and trust. And I like working with you, Peter. It really brings an added dynamic to the process when somebody's buying a home, that they have somebody really terrific that they can communicate with and get this valuable information from. So thank you for bringing that when you do these home inspections for us and for my clients as well. With that in mind, if you guys have any questions about real estate or home inspections, please feel free to leave a comment in the link on the page. You can message me through this page as well, and Peter's information will be there, and we will look forward to bringing you more information. So for now, Peter, I will say good night, and we will talk to you again next week, if not sooner.
All right. See you next time.
All right. Have a great evening. Take care, everybody. Bye.